Tonight on Let It Rip. The late night comedians celebrating vaccine mandates this week as United Airlines fires hundreds of employees and New York State says that 70,000 healthcare workers could lose their jobs if they don't get the shot. Could we see that same hardline stance here at home? But first.
This was a confidential informant used by the government to influence or try to influence Mr. Spivey by giving him money.
Yet another Detroit City Council member resigns in disgrace after pleading guilty in federal court to taking bribes. And the feds aren't done yet. Time to let it rip. On the panel tonight, she's a public relations expert with a deep knowledge of City Hall politics and the co-host of the No BS News Hour podcast. Karen Dumas is back. Also with us, the president of the Detroit Towing Association, Barry Foster, plus an attorney with a long legal career in both corporate and community law, and a member of the Detroit Police Commission, Linda Bernard. And as always, anchor attorney Charlie Langton. But we want to begin tonight with the legendary former Fox 2 reporter and member of the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame, Al Allen. Al, you covered city corruption for years, but you also know Andre Spivey. Not only as a councilman, but a pastor in the AME Church. How did a man of God become a convicted felon?
You know, he's one of the, and I'm saying because of his personality, but he is one of the nicest people you ever do want to meet. He is a stereotypical person of a pastor. He has a big congregation. He's involved in the community. He's on the city council, has been there for decades, and going, I think it's his third term. You would look at him and say, not Andre Spivey. But historically, I've covered so many of them. They've gone from the mayor's office all the way down to the pastors and those in between. I don't understand why somebody can go in as a saint, but get kicked out as a sinner. That's the problem we have. And I think some it has to do with they don't think they're going to be able to get caught, but eventually they do. They say they did it, so why are you picking on me? I mean, they have all kinds of excuses, but this is to what you do to your constituents. Those who put you in office ask you to be the servant. They ask you to take care of things in our place and make sure that the things are going right. But then something like Andre Spivey, it just exploded. He was at, by the way, the annual conference was held, 4th District Conference, in August. He was there in attendance, virtually. We've been asked, by the way, since this broke the other day, to send cards of like, you know, we're behind you, you know, we support you, because he was just that kind of person. But then, Hugh, the other thing is you look at how much, and it's the wrong thing to say, but it's the right thing when you ask the question to people that put you in office, why would you do that for a few $1,000s? And then try to influence your colleagues on the city council. They haven't been charged yet either, but try to influence them to join you in this escapade. And, you know, Hugh, I go back to Coleman Young, and there was this old saying, feds went after Coleman Young viciously, could never get it. But that was the message back then. Anybody else tries to do what he did, because they always believed Coleman was a crook. They always did, but they couldn't prove it. They're going to go after it. And, you know, we had Kwame. And you would think you see what happened to the people in the past, even other city council members, same thing, that you wouldn't try to do it. But they do. And it crosses not only the city of Detroit, it goes from county to county. It goes to county executives. I mean, the issue is, yes, it is. It is.
Let me bring Karen in here, because Karen Spivey not only admitted his guilt, he also admitted, as Al alluded to, that he introduced this FBI operative to other council members. And within weeks, the FBI raided the homes and offices of Scott Benson and Janae Ayers. So far, they have not been charged. But what does all this tell you?
Well, I think, as Al indicated, and as we know, anytime that there is power, anytime there is influence, people stand to make incorrect immoral and, in this case, possibly illegal decisions of various proportions. So, it's unfortunate. Andre is a very nice guy. I think he is a good guy that's made some poor decisions. And I think it speaks just to politics in the political arena. That's not to say everybody would participate in something like this, but there's too much leeway and flexibility to allow for impropriety.
And Barry, I want to make it clear that you had nothing to do with any of this. You're president of the Detroit Towing Association. You have good members, you have not so good members, but I've got to ask you, why are towing contracts the focus of this investigation now and have been for years in the past?
Absolutely, Hugh, and you're absolutely right. I'm the president of the Detroit Towing Association. I represent members of the association that are good people, honest Detroit business owners, woman-owned businesses. And right now, with the focus being on towing, we're surprised as well as this, just like everyone else, because it taints our industry. As there's a bunch of bad actors out there. And it gives us, when you mention the word towing in the city of Detroit right now, everyone looks at everyone is corrupt. And that's not good for our industry. And why this is around towing, we have no clue. We've heard that in the investigation that there has been a mention of a towing source. To this day, we still don't know who that towing source is. And again, it just paints all of us as an industry as bad actors, and that's not the case.
And Linda, this week, the mayor said that there needed to be changes in the process and the oversight of towing contracts. Now, you would agree this is a multi-million-dollar business, but does the amount of money involved invite the potential for abuse and corruption?
You know what? I honestly don't think so. And let me just say this to you. First of all, for me, all things towing related to DPD should be within the power and control of the Board of Police Commissioners, because that's how the city charter was set up. But as we look at this, what we're doing now is what has been proposed now, what's going to happen is there's going to be an RFP issued tomorrow. Well, tomorrow I have a committee meeting on it, actually. There's going to be an RFP issued. Anyone who wants to publicly tow for the Detroit Police Department can respond to that RFP.
And that's a request for proposal for those of us who are not in the business.
Request for proposals.
Yes.
But there is no regulation whatsoever of any persons who are towers who don't tow for DPD. There isn't a massive regulation of all towers in the city of Detroit. It's only this ordinance only addresses towers for DPD. 75% of DPD's towing will be now done by private towers. And I wanted the Board of Police Commissioners to continue to be the oversight body for that. No one in the Board of Police Commissioners has been accused of taking any bribe. It's the City Council, which is now going to be the person who's going to be letting these contracts. I mean, it really doesn't make any sense. I mean, you put the people, allegedly, and I'm not saying that this is true, and I don't believe it's true either, who've had these issues, they're now going to be in charge of this process. But I wanted the board, I don't have any problem with the procurement process. As a matter of fact, years ago, I wrote the procurement code for the city of Detroit. I don't have any problem with the procurement office, issuing an RFP. But I thought the Board of Police Commissioners should approve that RFP. Number two, the Office of Procurement could, of course, evaluate the RFPs and score the bidders. No problem with that. But I just thought the Board of Police Commissioners should approve the persons who are selected. And most importantly, and I think Mr. Foster will agree with me about this, the most important function that the board served, quite frankly, was you could appeal to us if in fact you felt you were unfairly treated, if in fact you felt you were being disciplined without cause, etc. That's eliminated now, which is absolutely critical for small businesses. I mean, these towers spend thousands in drainage fees, maybe $90,000 a year, because they got to have the paved lot. They pay city taxes. They pay employee taxes. They're dealing with the public. In many instances, I think tow operations should be at least a 12 to 24-hour a day, opportunity. I mean, business. Because if my car or your car gets towed and it's a rental car, we're visiting from Detroit, I can't wait till Monday if my car gets towed on a Friday night to pick it up. Heck, I got to be back at work on Monday in Chicago or LA. I mean, there's so many issues with this. But clearly the police department, I mean, the Board of Police Commissioners now has been, excised out of the process. I have been included on the new tow commission and two other commissioners as well.
But we're not sure that that's necessarily the answer to the problem. Let me bring Charlie in because
not at all, because one of the provisions, as I understand it, Barry, and maybe you know better than me, and Charlie, that's in the new RFP is that if you've ever been disciplined, you can't bid. I'm like, huh? It's not people who've been disbarred, but and so forth. But if you could have gotten in, a police officer may have come to you and said, "I'm gonna send you 10 tolls," so you send it for 10.
Right.
I think you can make the criteria. I think you can make the criteria.
Charlie.
Yeah. I just think you can make the criteria anything you want if you perceive that there's the corruption. I don't know why, if you're telling me that the police department handles most of the towing and yet the people are paying off city council people, what's going on here? There's a mishmash of where the towing comes. My focus, though, on this one is the appearance that you've got not one but two city council people on this council that have been pled guilty to something. I know Andre Spivey's always been good to me. I don't know him super well, but he's a nice guy. But he's looking at about 3 years in prison. And I think this judge is going to give it to him. This is a 4-year conspiracy, not 1 to 2. And it's a couple thousand, it's $35,000. That's a lot. And he's an incumbent member of the city council. And when you talk about the guidelines that are used for sentencing, I think this one is going to be pretty hard. And it really should be. It's sad, but it's got to send a message. I think the judge will do it.
All right, very quickly, panel. So very quickly, how do we make then the process fair to local towing companies and at the same time transparent so that the public knows where the money is and who's getting paid?
Well, Fuel, this is nothing new. I mean, this corruption is not new. It did not just kick in. So everybody's acting like this is new. It's not. I think there has been an ongoing effort, both from the Board of Police Commissioners as well as City Council. Council President Brenda Jones has been trying to work with the association to come up with something. They are the legislative arm of city government. And like Barry said, one bad apple doesn't spoil the whole bunch. So we need to look at the process, not just as it relates to towing, but for every city contract, because the same level of compromise stands the same way it does with towing for everything else.
Yeah, too, Hugh, Linda, this thing is like a dinosaur. Those towing companies and the city of Detroit have been involved in this kind of stuff for decades, going even past Coleman Young. What I see is one of the things they don't do, if they do, they don't try to take care of it. They don't really try to regulate these towing companies. You got to have specifics on what you do, where the money is going. You have to be accounted for. If you do, they're not enforcing it. And now you get the council members and others who become friends of members of towing companies. And we said before, towing companies are generational. They pass down. You have one person on paper that says he owns a towing company. In fact, there's about 3 other people who actually do. So what I'm saying is, the towing companies themselves, the city has really got to clamp down and watch them and control them to make sure things like this will not happen again.
We've got to find a way to work together in this. All right, panel, we're out of time on this issue, but look, we thank you for your comments and your insights. All right. We're not done. We know that we're going to come back to this issue at some point. All right.
Okay.
All right. Stay with us. We're going to talk next about the biggest question facing the country right now. Why are there millions of jobs out there, but fewer people willing to take them? That and more when Let It Rip returns. Welcome back to Let It Rip. On the panel right now, author, consultant, and the guru of liberal causes, Greg Bowens is back, along with the advisor and strategist who has helped to send several conservatives to Congress, Jamie Rowe. You've already met Karen and Charlie, so we begin this segment with an expert in employment litigation, attorney Jennifer Lord. And Jennifer, we're facing a big conundrum tonight. There are more than 8 million people out of work across the country, but more than 11 million jobs available. Why are so many Americans not working?
Well, Huel, I think that is the question everyone's asking themselves. And I'd like to start with the fact that there are 700,000 fewer Americans available for work because they were killed by the coronavirus. That is going to have an impact. what also is going to have an impact is the fact that these, especially service industry jobs, are incredibly stressful. And the workers are just tired of putting up with abusive customers. You know, we hear news stories, these Karen stories every single day. Who would go to work for minimum wage to have some stranger come in, scream at you, yell at you, spit at you? So I think that workers have been taking time to reflect. And, you know, what do I want? What do I need in my life? You know, obviously everyone has to earn a living. So I don't think it's fair to say that these people don't want to work. What they don't want to work in is a workplace that doesn't value them. And that's why it's really important for us as a society to take a step back and think about valuing the investment that workers bring to a place of business just as much as we value the investment that the owner of the business brings. I think this may be a time where people in the service industry, they say, forget it. You know what? I'm just going to go take a job at Quicken Loans where I'm not going to be screamed at. I'm not going to be abused. I also think this is a great point in time for small business owners to reflect and to think, maybe there's another way. We can have some investments in our workers that reflect the investment that they're making in our profit margin. And so, you know, there's been experiments with profit sharing in, let's say, restaurants, small businesses. But I think that that really will incentivize people to come back into these small businesses. And then just to remember, we seem to be on these diametric, stances. Workers and employers need to work together to come up with the best plan going forward.
But now, Greg, when you look at the United Airlines, that's not happening. Frankly, there are vaccine mandates in place for United Airlines. Today, they just fired more than 300 people who refused to get the vaccine. But could that backfire?
No. And the reason why I say that is because let's not act like we're brand new to this kind of situation. Workplaces have requirements and you have to fulfill them. If you're traveling, let's say you get your work requires you to travel to a separate country where you have to take the malaria pill or something like that. Are you going to refuse to take it when it's required, for you to travel there? No. Henry Ford Hospital, they had a mandate. And Charlie, this is your area where 50 workers filed a lawsuit against Henry Ford Health System because they required them to take a vaccine. They ended up dropping that lawsuit, and 94% of their workers are vaccinated. Now, Henry Ford Hospital is the place where you cannot work if you smoke, and they test you and they fire you. That's my understanding, if you have nicotine in your blood. So that's how serious they are about this. So this, let's not act like this is new.
Well, Jamie, let me bring you into this discussion. You just heard him, Greg, talk about the Henry Ford Health System mandating the vaccine. I'm told Beaumont will impose its own mandate next month. But what happens to the quality of care? You know what's going on in New York right now? There are 70,000 healthcare workers who are now under threat of being fired. What's going on?
You know what? I was at my doctor's office yesterday getting my quarterly checkup. And the nurse who came in had a limp, and she told me she had a neurological problem. And she asked me if I wanted the flu vaccine, and we had a discussion about that. And then I said, "Did you get the coronavirus vaccine? No, you guys mandated to get it." And she's like, "The day I'm mandated to get it is the day I'm done because I have a neuromuscular disorder, and I don't know what it's going to do to me, and I'm not taking a chance." So she had her own reason why she wasn't going to take it, and she was going to leave the system. This is a great nurse who I deal with all the time there, who's said if she is required to get it, she's going to leave. And I think we're going to force an awful lot of good people out of the healthcare industry and other industries by forcing this vaccine. And I'll tell you, the one thing about it is here, at some point, we got to trust people, okay? We got to trust people to make the decisions that are best for them and their families. And the fact of the matter is, we've never had employers mandate vaccines like this before for any purpose. And, the vast majority of people are getting vaccinated, and I'm vaccinated. Okay. My whole family is vaccinated. I encourage everybody to get vaccinated, but I don't think that we should mandate anybody. And I'll tell you, this administration and the people who are out there now trying to convince people to do it by calling them dumb, calling them all other kind of names, selfish, uncaring, isn't convincing anybody.
Well, Karen, General Motors isn't going that far. They're not requiring the vaccine, but they are telling its salaried white-collar workers that you better report your vaccine status or we could cut your pay, cut your bonus money.
Well, and I think this whole thing goes back a little bit to what Jennifer was saying in terms of, now we see industry dangling a person's ability to survive or provide for their lives in front of them, which I think is incredibly unfair and unjust. I think people have a right to decide what is best for them. And I also think that companies and corporations have a right to decide what they want to do as private corporations. But, I think that the pandemic allowed people to see a shift in the value or the lack thereof that has been placed on the majority of employees and workers. People have been vying for a livable wage. They are undervalued. They are underpaid. And people have sat back and said, you know what? This isn't worth it. Maybe I'm going to try entrepreneurship. Maybe we're going to merge our families and cut down on our cost and look at alternative ways of survival. We don't need all the stuff that we had because people's peace of mind and ability to decide for themselves outweighs a minimum wage under a valued job.
And Charlie, I think in most work situations, though, we don't care whether our coworkers are vaccinated, but we do care whether our coworkers are infecting us when they come to our workplace with the virus.
Absolutely. But I think that I'm going to look for some case where some judge is going to come down on it. I think the issue, though, of whether or not an employer can mandate a vaccine, I think would be upheld. And I think a judge would say, yes, that's okay to do that if the choice there. Now, I think that with Jamie's point, there may be some exceptions. If there's a medical exception or a religious exception. And I think that's kind of how, if you look at some other cases, Jennifer probably has some, she can rattle off the cases right now. But the bottom line to me is that that's going to be here to stay. But that doesn't really answer the question, is that why are there so many jobs? Why are there so many now, hiring job wanted signs out there? I think a little bit, and Karen said, a lot of the people that were in the service industry said, you know what, this is it. This is the time for me to make a change. I can go back to school. I can get another job. I can make a better living for myself. And I think many did. And the other one, I think, is that employers have to realize that if you want good people, you have to pay them more. Yep. Give them more money on some of these things. Now, we may be paying more for a hamburger or something, but the bottom line here is if you really want good people, pretty much in any industry, you have to pay them more. And the combination of all those, and the employers are not quite there, and there's people are not quite ready to go back into an area that's still COVID. We still have some alternative COVID out there, other COVIDs. It's a combination. We're not, until this virus is gone, then I think we'll get back to normal. We're not there yet.
But you see where money is still taking precedence, because on one hand, everybody's telling you to be careful and you've got all these variants. But on the other hand, everything's opening up. People are having concerts. You've got, parties and people are circulating. So as usual, everything are full of mixed messages, and people are just doing what they want to do and what they think is best, regardless of the impact of on everybody else.
The other thing that we need to, you really got to think about is that something that Karen and Jennifer have pointed out or alluded to. We have been operating our workforce on a 19th century model in the 21st century. Yep. Now, if there's anything that this pandemic has taught, is that you can work from just about anywhere doing the same kind of thing you're doing in the office. And that allows for some flexibility that I think, Jennifer and Charlie, you guys are the lawyers, are going to present some very interesting cases really soon about how much you can make people work from their office home.
And I just want to add one thing about this whole concept of freedom that the anti-vaxxers keep talking about. And I completely agree that everyone has freedom over their bodies, over their medical decisions. But just like you have that freedom, let's take this analogy to the extreme. you have the freedom to show up to work in cutoffs and flip-flops, and your employer has the freedom to say, we have a dress code policy here. You go home until you can come dressed to work appropriately. And so this is not an issue of freedom. This is an issue about respecting each other and taking care of each other.
And we're going to end it right there. Look, panel, excellent points. And of course, we are not done with this debate, but we are trying to get to the best version of who we are as a nation. Thank you. All right, stay with us. Final thoughts ahead.